Mini camp in the NFL is rolling on. A lot of them closing up shop later on today, Michael, but that doesn't mean that I don't still have burning questions for you as we make our way through each of these teams. Let's start off with the Jacksonville Jaguars here. In your mind, do you expect that the Jags will be able to make the leap from good to great year 2 here under Doug Peterson?
I think it's a really fair question because, and it's not a knock on them. It's about understanding how to get to the next level and the adversity that you must fight through. And I do think it's going to be a challenge because I think everybody on the outside is saying it's going to be so easy for you. They're going to win the South. It's no big deal. And everybody's going to take a Mother May I step forward. And it could happen, except it's a lot harder than you think it is because everybody's taking you more seriously. Everybody has studied you in the offseason. Everybody has a level of expectation when they go against a player. So, I think them going their over total at 9.5, I think is a little high. I wouldn't do it. I like their team. I don't love their defense. There's certain elements of their team. I think they're a draft away from being a consistently good team. And so I think it goes back to what Michael Malone said about most teams. You've got to get, you go from bad to good, fight through adversity, the confidence, and then all of a sudden you can become a champion. There's just steps you have to take. And these are steps that are growing pains, and the way the NFL schedule works, it makes it harder for you when you're a playoff team of the year. That's why most of the time, 6 of the 12 and now 7 of the 14 playoff teams rarely come back.
As it pertains to that AFC South division, is there a team you think has the build to overtake them this year? Rough division on paper outside of Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's another good question, Stormy. Look, Tennessee, I have such great respect for Vrabel and his ability to coach the entire game and keep people in line. So I think they could challenge. Because remember, last year with Joshua Dobbs at quarterback, they're playing that playoff type game, and they have a chance to win that game. Jacksonville didn't dominate them in that game at all. And so I think, to me, you have to look at them. The Colts will be a better team just because of the new environment, everything kind of new down there, without all the kind of the quarterbacking with Matt Ryan. So I think that'll improve. Houston's the unknown. I mean, D'Amico Ryans came out the other day at minicamp, said that we have an open competition. Okay, great, but Stroud's going to start. If Stroud can't beat out Davis Mills, something's wrong.
Yeah. Okay, great. But if it's not C.J. Stroud, what are we doing here? Considering you just drafted him number 2 overall in the NFL draft and have high expectations for your future with this kid.
And then we gave up everything to get him. Yeah. I mean, we basically cashed out our Deshaun Watson pool just to move up. So yeah, I think that's the case. Do I think he can make them a better team? That remains to be seen.
We talked with our guy Will Hill about the New Orleans Saints. He thinks it's going to be an under 9.5 win total type of a season for them. My question to you, though, is how will Derek Carr respond this year after being cut by the Raiders? He's a guy that's coming into this spot with a chip on his shoulder, wants to prove a lot of people wrong. He's certainly the most proven quarterback in the NFC South going into this season. So how do you think he'll respond this year in New Orleans?
Well, I think what we're seeing a little bit by bringing Gruden in is we're seeing that Carr didn't really feel comfortable in the Josh McDaniels offense because he did not play well last year. Turned the ball over way too much, made bad decisions, was not accurate with the football. He did not play at the level we've seen him play before, and he had really good skill play. I mean, he had Devontae Adams around him, missed some good throws that could have helped them win games. And if he does that this year in Pete Carmichael's system, then it's going to be a problem. Like, I think once Carr accepts that it wasn't McDaniels why he didn't play. He just didn't play good last year. Everybody has 1,000 excuses why it happens, but when you study the tape, there's guys open. I mean, I go back to the Pittsburgh game. He's got Devontae Adams wide open. He throws the ball out of bounds. I mean, that was the number one read. So I think part of this, too, is he's got to ingratiate himself to his teammates, show that he's tough, show that he's willing to do whatever it takes to win, and be comfortable in the pocket, right? This is one of the things about Carr going back to Fresno State. He was never one of those guys where you walked off watch the tape, say, man, that guy's endearing to his teammates. He's not that style of player. He's got a great arm. and he's got a great release, and he does things. The other problem is when the play breaks down, he doesn't make anything happen after the play. So I think he's got a lot to prove down there.
I understand that. I think a couple of things that do at least give me some sense of optimism for the Saints is that, like, they could have really torn it all down this year, right? Like, you're a year removed from Sean Payton. You're 2 years removed from Drew Brees. You could have just had other guys sent packing and do a full rebuild mode, but they brought everybody back. They still have a good defense, which Derek Carr largely hasn't had in his career. It's tough to win games when you have to score 28, 30 points per game. So maybe there are some things that'll work in his favor if he can get that system figured out. Let's keep it rolling here. Let's go to the team that won the Super Bowl a year ago, the Kansas City Chiefs.
But before we go to the Chiefs, I want to ask you, will you bet the over with Derek Carr in 10 wins?
No, I'm just saying I understand
that
they are.
I want it on the table. I want it on the table that you're not going to do that. I think that's important.
I am not.
I know you're very nice, and I know you're rooting for everybody, but I wanted to see where you were going with that because – history says that typically he's never been this kind of guy. I understand he hasn't had a great defense, but there's plays on tape that he could make that he just doesn't make at times.
Yeah, I think that he's in a better situation, and I understand more so why the win total is what it is. I understand why they're favorites in the division right now. I'm not saying that they're going to go out there and win it, but like I'm just more so giving the reasoning as to I think that there's opportunity for him to have success, and that New Orleans certainly believes in him that they'll be capable of doing that. I'm still not sure how I feel about Dennis Allen as a coach in general too. So there's a lot of question marks. So
yeah, I think that's a great point.
As for the Chiefs though, like I said, they're fresh off another Super Bowl win in the Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid era, but the AFC West is looking to be on the up and up this year. The Denver Broncos should be improved with Sean Payton. You imagine that the Chargers and Justin Herbert can take that step. They came to an agreement, so Austin Eckler is going to be out there playing and happier, at least for the time being. Can Kansas City keep its stranglehold on the division this year, though?
I think they can. And it's interesting. You just brought Justin Herbert up, and they asked him if he was going to have a hold in because of his contract. And he didn't say no. He just said, we'll see. That's a little scary there, right? I mean, if you're not going to take care of Herbert and give him what are we doing? What are we doing? I don't understand that one. I'm a little skeptical of that one. And I'm skeptical of their coach. I'm skeptical of how their offense doesn't play with any power. So I don't see them as the real threat. I think Denver actually might be more of a real threat against them than the Chargers, only because I think Peyton will dress that offense up and their defense is good. And I think the Raiders will be better with Garoppolo at quarterback, and their defense has gotten better. So I do think that there'll be a challenge, but I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Kansas City is going to be able to control this.
Yeah, and they have been for years in that division. Squeeze one more in here, last 90 seconds. Minnesota Vikings, we know you've got all-time lucky season they had with the amount of close games they came out on top of last year. How do they follow up a season like that, and then can the luck train continue for Minnesota?
I don't think Minnesota's worried about the luck train. They got to deal with Kirk Cousins next year. He's not under contract. He'll carry a debt. I think the moves they're making for this year's team is really about getting their cap back in alignment. And if they win 9 games, is that going to be really what they want to do? I don't know, because they know they need to get a quarterback. Do they want to go back and keep going to the cash register called Kirk Cousins? I don't think they do. They tried to trade him in the offseason. Nobody bid on it. I mean, they would let him go. They'll let Daniel Hunter go if it comes with the right compensation. I think they're in a remodel. And I think ultimately that remodel is going to lead to a lot more changes than we're seeing, which is going to lead to a team that isn't very good right now.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook released. You mentioned potentially moving on from Daniel Hunter as well. Zadarius Smith already out the door. So we'll see what happens with Minnesota. I did lean their win total over, but I know you think it's a hard under for Minnesota. That regression is certainly coming.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.